start recording now. So what we'd like to do is start off doing some tutorials, and what we'd like to do is do a step one. So this is the first tutorial in the process, and we're just going to call it step one. So this would be your introduction video for looking at the NDS Professional software. And what I'd like to do is just show you what the startup screen looks like and some of the features, and do a very basic overview. So when you get NDS and you get it loaded on your computer, you will see this as your startup screen. You will notice the software is kind of tab driven. So we are in the main menu here. We have another little icon that we can open up recipes and feeds up on this bar here. But the tabs that we see, there's a startup tab, there's a cost tab, utilities, and an import export. And those are the tabs that are over here on the upper left. There's an area down here below the cow eyes. Down here it says database settings, backup restore, some manual area here. And then over on the right side is an area we'll get to, which the farm structure is basically how we set up farms and deal with files. This is how we open feeds and recipes, and then if we are able to open up the composites here, we do it here. One of the basic functions that we need to set up right away is going into settings, which is underneath the cow here. There's an area into settings which takes you into the base settings for your computer. You can fill in your information here, but there's a little orange button here called the Register Renew button. And if you click on it, what it'll do is it opens up what is called the Rumen Tools. And Rumen Tools is a standalone program that we'll get to discussing later. But inside of Rumen Tools, there's an area that says send your installation ID in. And what happens is, in order to register the software, you need to come up with your username and put your email in. And then what this does, when you click send to server, your computer will connect to the mainframe computer in the Rumen office, and it'll allow the computer to take your ID from your operating system and link it to an ID code for the NDS software that be registered to you. And so the first option is to go ahead and fill that in, click the send to server. If for some reason that doesn't work, you can also, it'll create a text file that you can send by email into the Rumen office, and they will open up your software. And you'll do that by taking a code that they send you by email and putting it into your software. But sending in the installation ID is the first step of using the software. It allows them to give you a 30-day trial or to open your purchased copy. And then once that is done, there used to be a register copy step that we would ask you to do. You would get an email back from them and you would register your copy. Now they are automatically able to do that through the software the next time you hook up to the internet. So if you're asked to register your copy, you would go back to that register copy button here inside of Rumen Tools and just proceed either automatically, or the manual is allowing or doing it by the email process. But now they are able to do it as soon as you hook up online. They're able to go ahead and do that automatically, and you'll get a small note down here on the right side of your bottom toolbar that says that you have been registered. So that's the first process, of sending in your installation ID, and using the Register Renew button inside the options. So again, we are in the front page, the startup page of the software, and we're down into Settings tab. And in the Settings tab, there is a lot of things that you can set up inside of your software. You can put your name, your address, and all that stuff in here under the Information tab. You can decide which language you would like to use. And then in the Options tab, inside of the Settings is where you would go through and take some time to use your units, milk prices by weight in the U.S. You can set up your vitamins in IUs or KIUs on your reports. The sulfur for DCAD is referring to how the DCAD equation is set up. Feed inclusion after a change, so if you change the dry matter of a feed in a ration, would you like the as fed to stay the same or the dry matter to stay the same? Cost management basis for silages had to do with the price of the corn silage and how you were pricing the corn silage. Decimal places, this is self-explanatory. Currency, I would probably want US dollars. Tons. Historical management. Anywhere you see an I on the program, if you hover over that I, it'll basically tell you what the thought is behind this box or this area. So here, when you create farms, you would automatically include feeds in the farm list under that farm. You can do that. Backing up the program. Another one that is pretty critical is to go ahead and automatically detect updates here, so that every time you open up your program, the computer will check with NDS to see if you have an update available that you should go ahead and update. Import by ID code 1 is recommended, and that's the base, unless you're told otherwise. Working with some companies and some big feed mills, we're using ID code 2, but 1 is the base. The calculator, basically turn that off. It's kind of a European-based decimal system and not very user-friendly for the U.S. If you continue to go through here, and again, we are under, on the startup page under settings, and we're looking at the settings. We just went through options. There's a database area here, and this has to do with using the external feature of saving your reports and saving your rations and an external feature. We'll go over that in another session. But if you look, my external feature is activated by the button here, and you can see I have the external file box here open. Some other things as far as protection of the database, you can go ahead and use a protection word for your database. Passwords, user password, so if you want to click on, every time you can click on and have a different password for each person. The report section, what I am showing here is that my reports are set to save again in that external file structure, and that again is, we'll cover that on a separate video session. We can also put in here the fixed notes for recipes, a disclaimer, and a fixed notes for composite, something that'll be sent to every mix to the feed mill. You can also set up some custom headers here, and we'll go ahead and probably save that for another session. The startup page, you can customize the startup page here so that you will be able to show right here basically a customized startup page. If you have some JPEGs here, you can go ahead and set those up, and I'll have to figure out my path here, but you can get those to show up here in a customized format for both the startup page, and you can also do that in a report section. the layout function here, you can decide which font you use. I'm going to disable this zoom function for now, mainly when you're looking at projecting this or even using it at home to help amplify the screen, but I can show you that in another session. Using the Dropbox function, you can allow everything being saved automatically into Dropbox. And proxy has to do with using a SQL server, and we won't go over that for now. But that is the settings inside this settings tab under the main page. So I think that's everything in there. Rachel, is there anything we didn't cover?
No, you hit them all in the settings.
Okay, so moving right along here. We did go over the database. This database button actually connects right to the settings database, but again, that has to do with opening that external file structure. And again, we'll go over that in a separate session. It's a real good tool to be using for a busy consultant to keep all the PDF files, all the mixes, and an external copy of the file of the recipe that you are creating internally. But I'll go over that in a different session. So let's see. What we'd like to do is probably from here is go into how you would modify things inside of your NDS. And so I think we'll go right over to utilities in the utility area. And again, this is how to change some of the options on your computer for your system in NDS. And this is a big session that we could spend a lot of time here. What I'll probably do is I'll probably just hit very lightly on some of these, and we'll probably do a separate utility tab video later. But parameters, what this is referring to is basically how you would set up inside of NDS, inside of a high cow diet. What are those things that I want to see on the screen when I'm setting up a high cow diet? And I've chosen crude protein, true protein, soluble protein, some of the parameters that are important to me that I can choose by adding here and creating this list of what I would like to see as I open up my NDS recipe screen. So if I wanted to see ammonia as a percent, I could click this. It would add to the list here, and I can go down and have quite a number of parameters here. And then I can proceed here, and the ammonia or the protein A1 pool shows up here. If I want to move that around in my report, I may want to put it under soluble protein. I can hold down on the green box, bring that up, and then ammonia will be part of what I see in my recipe page. If I want to delete one, I can click here and go ahead and delete it, and it'll take it right out. And as I close that, then it'll close that screen. But I can have a different profile for my close-up cow diets. I can see a different profile here. If I want a different profile for my replacement heifers, here's the description or the parameters that I would want to see on my recipe page for that. So that's parameters. We can go back and talk about that later. User nutrients. If I want to create a user nutrient, say the true protein, I can make an equation and come up with a user nutrient, something that's not described in NDS. You know, I've created a few of them here. True protein, or RDP as a percent of crude protein. We can create those, and those can appear also in the parameter section. Units under the English system, this was basically created so that if you wanted to use grams instead of percent when you're under the English system, you can decide which one of these you want to see. And again, that's in a report area. Continuing down here, user list. A user list is a defined set of feeds that you would like to separate off. And it really isn't separating them, but what happens is that using Microsoft Access, every feed you have will be in your primary feed library. If I would like to separate off a set of feeds according to a list that I may want, and if I'm using the CS feeds as an example, I have a feed mill that uses these feeds so that I may separate those off. I may define those differently. I may price them differently. So this feed list is contained in my main list, but it'll be filtered off by Microsoft Access so that I can use this as a separate user list. You can have a bunch of different user lists here, and you can decide how you want to set those up. For right now, I'll just say that this is my user list, and I may want to add another feed into my user list. And I'm going to do corn grain, and I may find a feed. So here's some flaked corn. I may want to add this as an ingredient they have at that feed mill. And so I can check the box or check many boxes and then go ahead and hit the green button, and those will be added over into that feed list here. So that allows me to use feed list, user list. I can create feed list, duplicate a list, so I can tailor make some list of feeds that I want to use. And again, we can go over that in another session in more detail. Quickly going down the utility tab, the report settings. So if you want to customize some of the reports in NDS, you're able to make new reports, modify reports. I'll just show you that I have a feed mill report set up in NDS that I can use, and I've decided what I want in here. And in discussion with somebody the other day, they were talking about using sodium chloride or salt. So if I wanted to add this or make a new report, I can make a new report, name it, and then build the report. What I may do is just add to the report, and I may go down and just try to find sodium chloride. So here, if I was going to include salt in that report, it appears over here. I go ahead and proceed, and then salt appears down here. If I want to move it under the sodium and chloride, I can move it right to here. And then again, I've modified this report. And again, just this allows you can show a farm report, a feed analysis report, anything you would like to report. Did a amino acid, fatty acid report at one time, but you can have multiple reports showing as much or as little information as you want. And that's in the report setting. Going further down here, the quick data entry area down here is basically a an area where you can actually look into the feed analysis very quickly. Most of the new demos have one that's called US Lab. And so what we tried to do is tried to make this button look exactly like most of the entries that you would be looking at as from a PDF print off. So we went ahead and put dry matter, crude protein, soluble, ammonia, ADFIP, NDFIP, ADF, NDF. So we made this. Now, basically, again, you can modify this any which way you want. If you want to delete these parameters here, easy to go ahead and delete those. The same system, basically, if you want to modify that, you can add or an analyte you wanted to put in here. Again, click on new, start a new one. But most of the new demos are now coming up with this US Lab as a default. So again, that quick data entry has to do with you looking at feeds and feed analysis and going ahead and being able to do that quickly. This ingredient by formula basically is a pop-up button, and I don't think I'll spend some time on it here. We'll go over that at a different session. This feed analysis preview, when a feed pops up in a bubble, as you'll see when you work with the program, you can actually go back and change that around for how you would like that feed analysis to look. So when I'm looking at forages, concentrates, or a recipe, I can make it look like anything that I'm used to having it see. Again, that's probably advanced feature. What I would like to do is go quickly to just looking at these three functions right here. So again, when we were in the startup page in the settings under options, and we had this button clicked that said automatically detects updates, you should get a bubble that pops up down here that says there is a new update available. If you questioned it whether you are using the most current update, the version is right here, and we are on version 3, 8.8.09. But again, we're under Utility tab here, and there is a search update which will take you right to the website, will allow the computer to look to see that you're running the most current update. The next session talks about the update description. If you click on that button, what it will do is it'll take you to a PDF section that's on your computer that will tell you the last update that they had was 38809, and this is the date it was released, and here are the features that were updated. So it allows you to take a glance at what those updates were. The next button there that says download the feed library, basically we are releasing a commercial feed library periodically. What we're attempting to do is companies that are making available their analysis of products to us, and that if those products have data that is reputable, that's peer-reviewed documents, got a good database behind them, then we will allow them to go into the commercial feed library into NDS. And I'm just going to show you what the commercial feed library is right now. If I go to the feed section over here, then I can load up my entire feed library. But what I can do is I can go to the Rumen feed library here, go under concentrates here and go under commercial products. And here is a list of the commercial products that are presently in the NDS Rumen commercial feed library. And so as this gets updated periodically, then there may be a notification that pops up that you have a commercial feed library available down here. And so then you would be able to download the feed library. Just a few
And
more.
those pop-ups,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Those pop-ups will come up when you open your NDS, and they'll be in the bottom right-hand corner. And so you always kind of want to, I always just automatically update it.
And that is important, because if you're not running the latest update, or you are and some of your colleagues are not, you may have trouble communicating back and forth. So just very helpful to keep updated. The other two buttons are an area. Quick support is basically, oops. Okay, so it showed me an error, and then it went ahead and opened my quick support. So if I needed to get the Rumen IT guys to look at my program, if there was some problem or some glitch in it, what happens is this code can be sent to the info@rumen.it, and then they will be able to log on to your system and fix any issue that the system is having right there. So it's a 9-digit code, and that is emailed to the info@rumen.it. And most of the time, if we can set up a time that they can work on it, they can respond, and the IT group is a very interactive, supportive part of the NDS program. So they'll use TeamViewer and log on and communicate using Notepad, just on what issues you're having and what we need to be working on. So
and
again,
when you're waiting for them, and when you're waiting for quick support help, you need to remember to leave that box open.
Correct. So
yeah.
All right. So quick support. Rumen Tools is actually a standalone program that opens up, and within Rumen Tools there is quick support that it takes you to the same TeamViewer page that this button did, but you can get to quick support there. Some other things that may be necessary, they may ask you to send your database in. If you're using NDS on 2 computers, you can transfer your database back and forth. There's some other functions there that basically the IT group uses, or that are some advanced functions that we won't go through right now. But Rumen Tools is a standalone program that you can access here, but also if NDS didn't open for some reason, you can go into your C drive. So going onto my computer, your C drive, you can go into a directory called Rumen, which will be created on your computer, and inside of Rumen you'll have NDS3, and then inside NDS3 you'll have Rumen Tools, and you will be able to access everything right inside of Rumen Tools. Looks like I've got too much stuff in here. Let me go back out of here.
And if you can't, this is where if you can't get your NDS to open up at all, which we very rarely have that problem, but this is how you would do a quick support for that.
It looks like I've kept too much junk in here.
You got a lot of stuff in there.
So there is a Rumen Tools right there. So as you can click on that, and that will open the same Rumen Tools. Even if NDS doesn't open, then you can get a quick support number and have them work on that. So it's standalone outside of NDS. So we're almost done with this area. Again, the calculator, I turn that off. Aligning database, that's something that they may ask you to do, and we're not going to touch on that. There's an area called animal default types, and so when I open this may be a good introduction to what you see when you start building diets, but there are default animals inside of NDS, inside of CNCPS. And again, NDS is a platform that runs CNCPS 6.1 or the next update that Cornell will come up with. So the NDS platform is running the CNCPS software from Cornell, which is right now using 6.1 biology, and the next update will be 6.5 biology. But inside of the description for these animal types, we have lactation cow, dry cow, replacement beef cow, young calf, and a lactating beef cow. So there are some default animal types. So the lactating dairy cow is the one we're on. A dry cow, if we click on a dry cow, the default definition for a dry cow is as you see here, and then you can customize that. Now the difference between a close-up dry cow and a far-off dry cow is the days pregnant. So if you're in the software and you need to describe a far-off dry cow, 259 days carried calf or days pregnant and below is the definition of a far-off dry cow. A close-up cow, once she becomes 260 days pregnant or above, then she has a mammary requirement as she builds her mammary gland again, and I think her gestational requirement is up a little bit too. But you will notice that in NDS, once you hit 260 days pregnant or days carried calf, you'll get in a close-up dry cow, you'll get a milk fever prediction and some DCAT equations, some urine pH predictions, some blood calcium predictions that you don't have in a 250-day dry cow. But these are customizable for you. So if I go into lactating dairy cow, the system, I can customize this so every time I open up a lactating dairy cow that I can have these parameters set up. Once I change these, I want to make the cow a 90 pound cow with a 3.07 milk protein. Then I can click on save as a user default, and those will become the default numbers within NDS for me. So that is just something there. And then also you can, the replacement heifer is a growing heifer. This young calf is basically the liquid feeding phase of a 60-day or younger calf. So it's a milk-fed, submodel that is not part of the Cornell submodel, but it's some latest data from Mike Van Amberg and University of Illinois, and some stuff that the Rumen group has put together. Beef cow is basically feeding, feedlot cattle, and it uses a different submodel. Again, it's not the CNCPS submodel, and when you click on the tab, you'll notice that. Lactating beef cow the same way. So you can customize this area for parameters for your computer, and then you can actually set up some subcategories of there. So as we've gone through here, again, the startup of your program should look like this. You'll have the settings area right underneath the cow here that you need to spend some time with. The utility page here you need to spend some time with. And just for the first step for completion, we'll talk a little bit about these other two tabs. So the cost area, if you want to update cost or something, that's using the program. I can set up any feeds or feed list, and I can go to that CS list that we were looking at before. I can change cost here and put any feeds or feed cost in here and save this, and it would reflect when I use this feed list or this user list, it would come in with these prices. So that is using the cost setup over here, and I can show cost and update the cost. The import-export tab is another area that have some features here. So I can import the analysis of some feeds, and I can either get those from several sources. One of them would be another NDS user would send me a Rumen file that I can import feeds into my program with. Or the other one that is used by a lot of the US producers, or US users, sorry, is the XML files. So what we are doing is all the major laboratories right now are using what they call a standardized XML. And again, you can use that downloaded file onto your computer, and then you can import a standardized XML feed analysis into NDS and not have to hand enter those. And again, that again will be handled in a different session, but here is where you would do that. You're in the feed analysis area here, and then you would import an XML file. And again, most of the labs are bringing in, feeds from there, and we can show that in a different session. But again, that's how people are bringing in their XML, standardized XML into NDS. I can also export feed analysis. So if Rachel and I are working together as colleagues and I want to send her a bunch of feed analysis, I can export a feed analysis to her, and I will just default it to my desktop, but I can actually export to her a user list. So I want her to have that same CS feed list. I can export that list to her, and then there's some other features here. I can actually just attach it to a file, and if I have my Outlook open, it'll open up that user list here, and then she can import the analysis, and it'll be a Rumen file to her. So it gives me some ability to do that there. I can also export some farms that I'm working with right to Rachel. If she wants to look at an entire farm, she can import that farm into her working group. But again, we'll cover that in another video. So again, Rachel, we've gone through anything. What else do we need to talk about?
I think that's all that I would run through the intro with.
Okay, we'll go through in video 2. We're going to go through working groups and how to build the farms and then how to bring in your recipes. But right now we just wanted to cover the setup. Basically, when you get the thing, some of the features that you are able to change and customize. I guess the backup and restore function, in the default settings, you'll be asked to back up your NDS every 15 days. So again, that goes into the backup, and these backups will be saved internally into your NDS file here, and they'll be in that Rumen NDS 3 file. And so what I'll do is back up every 15 days like it asked me, but then I may also go in here and go into my computer and stick a thumb drive in here and make sure that I've got an external copy and an internal copy on the backup. So again, we've gone through most of the functions and most of the area of looking at the NDS setup. And so I think what we'll do is we'll end here, and then in step 2, what we'll do is we'll go over setting up farms and structures and then going through some of these areas. Thanks for your time and looking through this. And again, this is step 1, and we'll end it here. Thank you.